Hello and welcome to A Better Morning. I'm Heather Klein. We debate the trending topics in sports from a sports betting point of view. Let's welcome today's panel. Lead NFL analyst of Fantasy Alarm, Andrew Coop Cooper. The fantasy executive, Corey Parson. Host of Her Story in the Making and co-host of Lightning Round, Britt Flynn. Head of content of Fantasy Alarm and award-winning host on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio, Howard Bender. How's it going, guys?
Great.
Good
How
morning.
are you?
Great. It's a better morning that you guys are here.
Aww.
All right, let's
You're
get
so
to
sweet.
it.
Right?
I tried.
Angel. Heather
Heather
Angel.
Klein, everybody.
Yeah,
Come
let's
on.
go, dude. Now I'm fired up. Come on.
Let's go. All right, guys, we had a crazy trade last night leading into the 77th NBA draft tonight. Last night, the Celtics, Grizzlies, and Wizards agreed to a 3-team deal that would send Kirstaps Porzingis to Boston. Hoops, Marcus Smart to the Grizzlies, and the Wizards would receive Tyus Jones. In addition, Boston receives Memphis's first-round pick in tonight's draft, and the Warriors' top 4 first-round pick in 2024. And Washington will receive Boston's 35th pick in the draft. They also received Danilo Gallinari and Mike Muscala from Boston as part of the deal. Who do you think will make the biggest impact to their new team, and which team is the loser in this situation? Howard, you are up first.
Really? I'm up first on this trade? I got to tell you, I thought it was a solid deal. I know that it came down to the wire at the end there. Listen, I think if anybody, I don't really follow hoops enough to know exactly like what intricate part goes into the rest, but I'll turn around and say that I think probably one of the bigger winners of this is maybe Ja Morant. You bring Marcus Smart into the team here. Definitely was a calming presence in Boston, a leader for the team, and maybe, just maybe, having somebody like Smart on the court with him will actually help him transition back from a suspension due to stupidity into whatever, being the player that everybody wants him to be.
All right, so this is right here is a fabulous trade for the Memphis Grizzlies. You know what I'm saying? Howard touched on it. You bring Marcus Smart in here. And Marcus Smart, what you have is the player that Dylan Brooks was supposed to be, minus the foolishness and the bad shots. Not to mention the fact you get a guy who's played in conference finals and in the NBA finals. If that's a place that the Memphis Grizzlies want to go, a player like Marcus Smart can help them do that. Now, they have Jaren Jackson, who just won Defensive Player of the Year. Year before that, it was won by Marcus Smart. So they have 2 of the best defenders in the NBA on the team. I think this move right here is fabulous. It's fantastic. You look back when the Memphis Grizzlies were the Grindhouse Grizzlies, guys like Zach Randolph, guys like Tony Allen. Marcus Smart is a player in that role. He gets to bridge the gap while Ja is out early in the season, and then he can be that veteran leadership as well. So I think this is a fantastic trade right here for the Memphis Grizzlies. And can I say this? Other people besides Howard Bender are award-winning.
Oh, how am I going to follow that? There's some beef. So listen, I think that one of the things that couldn't get the Celtics over the hump last season was their lack of offense. They didn't have just that extra little spark. And I think that that's what Porzingis brings to this team now. Yeah, he's coming off a career best year with over 23 points a game, over 8 rebounds a game, and almost 3 assists per game. And he shot 38.5% from 3-point. I think that's exactly what Boston needs here. As much as it hurts losing Marcus Smart, who was an all-defender, a 3-time defensive player of the year, I think that that's finally going to get Boston over the hump. So I think that they came out as the big winners in this trade. And I really feel bad for Coop. My condolences to you for losing Smart.
I know. Marcus Smart, my boy right there, he's gone. But I got to put my biases aside on this one. I do agree with Corey and Howard, that it's a culture fit, a culture change. Fake tough guy John Morant now has to deal with a real tough guy, right? And usually when that happens, it straightens the other guy out. Hopefully, we'll see what happens. But the Celtics did have a logjam of guards. They had too many redundant players. Kristaps Porzingis, he'll stretch the floor. He'll set up the pick and roll. He'll open things up the middle for Tatum and Jaylen Brown. The question now is who's going to step up and be the culture leader for this Celtics team, because Tatum, Brown, those guys have been called soft. And Marcus Smart was the heart. He was the tough guy there. So someone's got to step up in that aspect. But for basketball purposes, it probably is the right move.
For basketball purposes, this is going to be a problem for the Boston Celtics because Kristaps Porzingis, and Britt read off his career numbers that he just put up in Washington, because Kristaps Porzingis is nothing more than a good player when he's on a bad team. But when he's on a good team, he doesn't step up. Let me tell you something. This is not going to end well. I know how Boston Celtics fans are. They're going to want to run Porzingis out of town because Porzingis has bad body language. He disappears in big moments. So you're getting another soft player, not a culture fit. I guarantee you this time next year, they're going to be trying to move on from Porzingis. He doesn't play all the time. And another thing, this John Morant thing, what did he do that we're calling him a fake tough guy? Do the same thing that other 22-year-olds do? No laws, no rules was broken. So listen, Coop, I'm sorry, but Porzingis, trust me, as a guy who in my past has rooted for the New York Knicks, you're not going to like Porzingis when it comes to these big games.
There's one I've never heard. Knicks fans don't like Porzingis.
Don't.
That's a brand. Of course they don't, dude, because he was terrible with you guys, but now he stepped it up. And I'll tell you this, Corey, you're asking me what he's doing that other 22-year-olds don't do. How about wave guns around on multiple occasions? Most 22-year-olds
sitting in his driveway, in his car, in his driveway. Okay, in the Second Amendment state.
I don't know. Maybe in my state, my state, we don't wave guns around much. And now I'm hearing that I hear all the time Celtics fans are racist, this and that, and now I'm hearing that Celtics fans are going to dog on Porzingis immediately if he's not amazing. I mean, everyone gets a chance here. Like before he even comes here, people are telling me he's going to get hurt. He's going to be soft. He's not going to have the toughness to play in Boston and deal with the media. Let's let him get here first and see how he fits in along with the rest of the bigs on this team. And maybe, just maybe, he still actually will be good along with the other two potential max deal guys on the team. And maybe the Celtics will raise another banner and just increase their lead over the rest of the league.
I'm still trying to get by Corey being like, what 22-year-olds aren't flashing guns while they're sitting in their driveway? That's got to be one of the craziest, most inane statements I've ever heard in my life. It's the most ridiculous thing. I'm not going to sit here and go off about how athletes are supposed to be role models, but I mean, let's face facts. We've had numerous situations where guns have been involved with professional athletes, and it's rank stupidity. That's what it is. I don't care what your background was. I don't care how you've grown up. You're an NBA player making NBA money right now. There's no reason to do it. There's no reason to flash a piece. Nobody gives a crap if you feel like you're a tough guy or not. And I just think that that's one of just the craziest things in the world. I'm glad the NBA suspended him. I hope Marcus Smart straightens him out at least some of the way, because if that's the normal behavior of 22-year-olds, well then, dear Lord, please put me in the grave right now, because I don't want to be around when 22-year-olds are just like, oh yeah, man, you just flash my gun. No problem. No problem. Like, what is that?
All right, guys. Exhale.
Tell me now.
Pop, pop, pop. The NBA draft is not just exciting for the young men that are about to have their lives changed, but it also brings a lot of hope or misery to the fans of their respective teams. We had the drafting of some high school phenoms like Kevin Garnett, Kobe Bryant, and LeBron James. The suits, the bling, the emotion, and the first international player to go number 1 overall, Yao Ming. What is one of your biggest NBA draft memories? Britt, you are up first.
So I am going to age myself a little bit here, but it's definitely the Lakers drafting Kobe Bryant for me. At that point in time, they had Vlade Divac, they had Magic Johnson, who was in his mid-30s, Nick Van Exel, Cedric Ceballos, but Magic was getting old. I mean, he was already 36, and it was time for a flashy young player. And Kobe brought all of that. He was just like this long, lanky kid, but he had this big personality and this big will to win and just impressed everyone. And even though he was technically unrefined, that attitude and that swag, even in 96, I remember feeling excited for the first time about the Lakers. At the time, it was the Bulls. All the kids in my school liked Jordan, but I finally got to feel excited about my team being good. And that's what getting Kobe felt like.
Yeah, rest in peace, Kobe. My story is actually not my own personal story, but one that was told to me. I was at the March Madness tournament in Providence one year, and I ended up sitting next to Rob Babcock, who was an exec in the NBA for a long time, worked with Timberwolves for a long time. And he told me this story where Kevin McHale wanted nothing to do with Kevin Garnett, didn't even want to see him. And Rob Babcock was out with those guys going to see another player and basically tricked them into seeing Kevin Garnett. Babcock actually picked Garnett up in his car, and they went and did this workout. And McHale ended up getting down on the floor, working out with Garnett. And that's what led to the famous quote in the car ride home between Flip Saunders and Kevin McHale, where they said, "We're actually going to draft a high school kid, aren't we?" And then they took him at 5 overall. So, rest in peace, Rob Babcock. Rest in peace, Flip Saunders.
All right. So I guess we're going to my story. All right. So my story, Britt showing me her age with drafting Kobe. Let me get a little gray in this beard even more and take you back into the 1980s. All right. It wasn't even the draft moment that was so big. It was the draft lottery drawing that was so big. The Knicks, absolutely atrocious, a terrible team. Everybody's still hanging on to good old Willis Reed coming hobbling out of the tunnel there to help lead the Knicks. But they were so bad, and the NBA was so tired of a major media market like New York sucking so much that they actually froze one of the envelopes as they were turning that drum. They had a frozen envelope in there, which allowed the Knicks to get the number 1 pick in the 1985 draft. Welcome to the New York Knicks, Patrick Ewing. That was a killer moment for me.
For a number of reasons, I'm going to go with the 2019 NBA draft. Obviously, seeing the guy, in Ja Morant, who I've known his family and stuff like that, get drafted was a big moment. So it was cool to celebrate that. But, people who know me know that sometimes I fashion myself as a media critic. But in 2019, the player interviews after they were drafted was being done by Maria Taylor, and it may have been the most fabulous piece of television broadcasting I've ever seen. From Zion Williamson to Ja Morant to R.J. Barrett, it was tears flowing on that night, and Maria Taylor was fantastic how she navigated that moment. So shout out to her. That was real good. Now, the 2009 draft, the 7th pick of the draft was Steph Curry. He went to the Golden State Warriors. The 9th pick of the draft was DeMar DeRozan. He went to the Toronto Raptors. The Knicks were mixed in there at 8. They took Jordan Hill. There you go.
Really?
So what you're saying is
you
that's
slam
not
the Knicks
great.
with your final statement?
Yeah, I did have to slam
with
it.
you?
Now, Howard, I got to get on you about the frozen envelope conspiracy theories. Now, all of a sudden, the Knicks, the NBA wanted to make the Knicks the team that brings Patrick Ewing and have that Twin Towers out there, just like the World Trade Center. I've heard this conspiracy so much. But if this was the case, award-winning Howard Bender, how come they didn't give the Knicks LeBron James? How come they didn't give the Knicks Zion Williamson? The team been in the tank for 30 years. You would have think they would have got somebody by now if the conspiracy theorists were all about putting the Knicks in a good spot. Cut it out, Howard. There's no such thing. The Knicks were fair and square when they won that lottery in 1985 or 84, whatever that was, and getting Patrick Ewing. And also, Britt, I do agree, that draft day trade, sending the Hornets, when the Hornets sent Kobe Bryant to the Lakers, was also a great one. Howard, I got one of those awards, too, for a program you're very familiar with that you couldn't do nothing with.
What are you talking about, dude?
That you couldn't do nothing with.
That was all Scott Engel back in the day.
Yeah,
we all know it was Scott Engel back in the day. So it's good try. Good try there. But my good friend Corey Parsons, I'm so sorry that you're so jealous, but that's okay. Listen, you were able to get away with manipulating the draft lottery back then when it was, the 80s, and you put the team's envelopes into a bin and you rolled it around like it was bingo night at the local VFW. It doesn't work that way now. They've complicated the lottery. Now it's all ping pong balls and how many ping pong balls you actually get in there. Now, sure, they could have taken another tub and just dumped it in there that just said Knicks on that, but you got to spread that cheating love around in the NBA, and that's kind of what they did, and that's how they've grown the NBA to the point where it is right now, to the point where we do have teams in Oklahoma City and Toronto, right? And that's what we're looking at now with the NBA. So they had to spread the love around. Was it a conspiracy theory? Absolutely. Was it true? Yes, it was.
Wow. I'll have to get my tinfoil hat out for the next episode. Your favorite memory is something that may or may not have happened.
I can read your mind. You guys are all like, I wish I was Howard.
No, not again. Oh, you got.
I'm
just going to throw out something tonight. I think I might make a new favorite memory when Anthony Black gets drafted in the top 10. So.
Ooh, you're calling it? Are you calling it?
How much? What's the odds on that?
I don't know. I haven't looked. I don't bet on Arkansas players. It's a tenet of mine.
Okay.
You know what? I was actually on the Bettor Sports betting show with Dan Servadidio yesterday, and he threw down Anthony Black at the number 8 pick.
Yep, that's where I'm thinking too.
Corey,
what's up?
What do you think? At the number 8 pick, Anthony Black?
This is to me, this is a top 3 draft. This is a 3-player draft with the 3 players that go 1, 2, 3. And after that, I think it can fall where it may. If I would look for anything to wager on, take a crack at Scoot Henderson number to go 4th. That's plus 2,500 at most shops right now. I'm not sure the Portland Trailblazers are in love with him.
Did you see the guy that actually laid the money on Wemby to go 1?
That's crazy.
You got $14,000 to make $28.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Like how badly
Some people don't deserve money.
To do that?
$28 free money, dude. Free real estate.
That's wild. All right, guys, let's move over to baseball. The Reds are on fire. The National League Central leader earned their 11th straight win and is their longest streak since winning 12 in 1957. They've almost doubled their wins this season compared to last, as they went on to lose 100 games in 2022. Cincinnati is 8 games behind Atlanta for the top spot in the NL with the ride that the Reds are on. Do you think they can keep this up? And how many more games can they win to keep their insane win streak alive? Howard, you are up first.
Well, like what's it going to take for them to keep this up? For them to win the division, I think the Reds just have to play 500 baseball right now. That NL Central is just absolute hot trash, and I love where the Reds are right now. The problem is that you have to look at this team and find out how they measure up against the Braves, because the Braves to me are still the class of the National League, and everything's going to have to run through them. In order for the Reds to do it, listen, offensively, fantastic. They've got youth on the field. They've got leadership in Joey Votto. The biggest problem for the Reds is and will always be pitching and that ballpark. They're going to need Nick Krall is going to need to trade some of the youth that he's got tucked away in the minors and get himself a couple of frontline starters first.
Well, shout out to the Cincinnati Reds. They're on a 2-game winning streak since I came on this same program and trashed what they were doing earlier this week. Now, here's what I can say. Success does breed confidence. And we see that the Cincinnati Reds are playing with confidence. They're playing successful baseball right now. Listen, the guy, Steer and Ella De La Cruz playing well, Votto coming back. So I don't want to take away from the optimism of Cincinnati Red fan. But before we start putting them in the class with the Atlanta Braves, let's come down a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Kim Burns, don't start writing a limited series yet. But I do think I will go as far to say that they will be in the playoffs and there will be playoff baseball at the Great American Small Park. So that'll be fun right there. But no, they're not nowhere near the horse that the Atlanta Braves are.
Ken Burns.
Shout out to Kim Burns.
Yeah. Yeah. As great as this story is, they're not catching the Braves, but I have to give them the props. Bringing on Ellie De La Cruz has really transformed this team, but their next game, unfortunately, is against the Braves. And it's AJ Smith-Shawver is scheduled to pitch, and we haven't really seen a lot out of him, but what we have seen has been really, really good. He's got a 2.03 ERA, 11 strikeouts. The Reds' bats have been hot with 68 runs over their 10-game win streak, but I don't know if their pitching can hold up with Luke Weaver and his 6.47 ERA scheduled to be on the mounds against the Braves. I mean, that's just going to be kind of gross. I think it's going to be a blowout. But the Reds, props to y'all for doing what you did.
Yeah. So despite the Celtics gear today in honor of my boy Marcus Smart, I'm a football guy. So I like to put things in terms of football, right? Baseball is 162 games. So an 11-game winning streak is equivalent of what? Winning one game in the NFL. And you look at the schedule, they played 3 games against the last place Rockies, 3 games against the last place Kansas City Royals. I understand that, 10 in a row, very cool. But it's such a small sample size in terms of the full scale of this. I'm totally with Corey Parson on this one. Let's see what they can do against the Braves. And guess what? Coming up right now, 3-game trip to face the Braves. So if they can come out of this, heck, win 1 for me. But if they can win 2 out of 3, now we can talk.
See, I'll tell you what, man, the Reds taking on the Braves right now and losing this series will be the best thing for them. It'll not only be a humbling experience, but it's going to tell GM Nick Krall exactly what he needs to do. I mean, you take a look at what happens now, the 2 weeks leading up to the All-Star break right now, the 2 weeks after the All-Star break, going to be very telling as far as which teams could potentially fall out of it and which teams, are still going to be in it, because we need to see who the sellers are for MLB before we start handing out MLB championships. If the Reds can get themselves, I don't know, let's just say a ground ball specialist like Marcus Stroman, if they can get themselves a high strikeout pitcher. Listen, the Mets are atrocious. The Mets are likely to be a team that's going to fall out of contention. If the Reds can turn around and trade youth over to the New York Mets and get themselves either Verlander or Scherzer, you put them at the top of that rotation, who brings back Hunter Green. Andrew Abbott is going to be a decent arm to maneuver down the stretch. You also have Nick Lodolo coming back. They're going to need to make a move. They're going to have to get 2 rock-solid starters who aren't afraid to throw at Great American Small Park, and that's how the Reds are going to do it. So lose to the Braves all you want. That's just going to inspire Nick Krall to make some moves and get some pitching in this team. That's all they need right now.
Is this a Rocky movie, Howard?
No, they have to get the Reds or the Dodgers.
They have to get beat up by the Braves so they can do some montage during the trade deadline and come back and beat them later at the finale. No, if they're a good team, they should just beat the Braves now.
That's not even remotely true. That's not even remotely true. They don't have the pitching horses to to keep pace with the Braves. They don't. We all know that they don't. What they have is nice youthful exuberance right now. You're going to need to keep them grounded with guys like Joey Votto, but they aren't going to go anywhere without any decent starting pitching. So they have to make that move. If you want to say that the Braves are Clubber Lang, or I don't know, I don't even know Ivan Drago. Take your pick. Pick. The Braves, if the Reds get frontline starting pitching, then I'll tell you what, then the Braves are going to be more like Tommy Gunn Morrison than they are going to be like Ivan Drago.
If he dies, he dies.
Exactly.
All right, guys, let's move over to the NFL. The National Football League is reacting to the influx of players that violated the league's gambling policy by doubling down on the league's rules. All rookies will be required to attend mandatory education sessions, and league officials will be visiting teams to discuss what is not allowed and illegal for players and coaches. What are your thoughts on this? And do you think the NFL failed the players that have been suspended, like Lions' Jamison Williams and the ongoing investigation of Colts' Isaiah Rodgers? Coop, you're up first.
Yeah, this is 100% too little, too late. Like with Pete Rose, think about it. He bet on baseball. He bet on games he was managing in, right? Calvin Ridley bet on his own team, even though he wasn't with him. You could say it's insider trading, whatever. Jamison Williams is allowed to bet on baseball. He's just not allowed to bet on baseball inside of their stadium. What? Because there's some sort of slippery slope where betting on another sport in a certain building leads you to maybe bet on the NFL at some point, some sort of integrity of the game. I mean, there's not even a baseball team that plays inside of that building, right? You're confusing these kids. You're ruining this guy's career potentially. You're ruining the season for this team. And then you're going to turn around and say, hey, let's make sure everybody knows the rules after we already suspended this guy for something that he's allowed to do. He's allowed to do it on his couch and not on the couch inside the locker room.
Yeah. Let's blame the NFL. Let's not blame the stupidity, the rank stupidity that runs through NFL players. It's insane. Come on, guys, right? You don't have a friend who can place those bets for you. You don't have a bookie you can call and just have that taken care of so that there's no record of it whatsoever. It's the most ridiculous thing in the world to sit here and blame the NFL for the fact that these kids are just absolute stupid idiots. You know what? Don't gamble publicly. Just don't do it. It's not that difficult of a thing to have somebody else take care of this for you. It's not improper to be laying action on baseball like that. It's the appearance of impropriety and what could potentially happen. So smarten up and stay out of it.
Yeah, I wish it was that simple, but I agree with Coop. This is a problem that the NFL should have got on in front of it because you don't know. It's such a gray area. You don't know. Yes, they're allowed to wager, just like John Morant's allowed to have a handgun. But here's the thing: you can't do it inside of team facilities. A lot of the players don't know that. You can't bet on an NFL Wi-Fi. You can't bet when you're in team settings. Not on the NBA, not on Major League Baseball, and not on football. One thing I will say is this: the NFL Players Association needs to make sure that suspension of Jamison Williams is appealed and that's reduced from 6 games to 1 or 2. That's the correct way to go about it. This is an NFL issue, and they got to start doing this to college athletes as well. Make sure they know when and where they cannot engage in wagering.
Yeah, Jamison Williams says that he doesn't even remember placing that bet. And if it is a situation where you didn't have, don't scoff at me, Howard.
Oh, I'm scoffing.
Where you had, no service, and then you suddenly connected to the Wi-Fi. Like, where was the bet actually placed? They can trace it on Wi-Fi, but that doesn't mean that you placed it on the grounds. And it's kind of very hypocritical. You've got DraftKings, you've got FanDuel, you've got all these betting sites putting up sponsorships at these different stadiums and venues, but yet you're going to punish the players and not tell them what they need to do. I think it's also a slippery slope when it comes to fantasy football. I mean, where are we going to draw the line with that? We know certain players like Austin Eckler want to play fantasy. There's money involved in that. There's DFS involved in that. When's the NFL going to start investigating that? It gives me the very biggest ick, the way that the NFL is handling this.
Howard, not proper, but the appearance of impropriety. Okay, Mary, Queen of the Scots. Just tell these kids what they can and can't do. Like,
don't bet. Don't bet. I'm in a state where it's not legal to place a bet. I may or may not have somebody in a legal state who can help me out with that situation. You're telling me a Joe Schmo like me can do that, but a millionaire NFL player can't?
I lived in New York for years. I went to Jersey, and now all of a sudden I can't bet on FanDuel, DraftKings, or bet MGM. The rules are not laid out properly.
Corey, you should have listened to Howard and Chris Carter. Just have a fall guy bet for you.
You know what?
Just
flash your gun at whatever agency is out there like monitoring this, because that's how we properly handle the world nowadays.
We're off the rails officially.
All right, guys, that was today's edition of A Better Morning. Thank you to Corey, Howard, Britt, and Coop, and we wish everyone